everybody, Dan Illman, Mike here, the DRF race of the day for Sunday, March the 26th, race number 10 at Sunland Park, a potential Kentucky Derby prep race. The Grade 3 Sunland Derby offers $600,000 in purse money. We're going 1 mile and an eighth. Before we take a look at the field, remember the Timeform USPPs are now free in your DRF PPs. Head on over to DRF.com, access your past performances. You'll see the Timeform US tab. Click to access the Timeform US pace projector, pace ratings, class ratings, speed ratings, and all the goodies associated with Timeform US. Here's the field for the Sunland Derby. Click or scan the QR code for Race of the Day access on mobile with your free formulator past performances. No Kentucky Derby qualifying points on the line for your morning line favorite. That's the 6 hard to figure. He is trained by Bob Baffert, but as you can see from the morning line, Mike, it's a pretty interesting race. Henry Q comes off a huge victory in his local debut, the local prep for the Sunland Park Derby, the Mind That Bird Derby.
Yeah, he did look good winning that race. That was a much weaker field than the one he's going to face on Sunday, Dan, but it was a big step in the right direction for him. I guess in some ways, even though hard to figure can't get any points here, Dan, he's probably the key to the race. To me, it's just all about whether he can repeat that last performance, which kind of came out of nowhere.
It certainly came out of nowhere. He was up close to the pace in that race. We'll throw up the Timeform US pace projector, and this pace could be fast, despite the fact that only 7 entered. 1 in Vermilion, the number 5, one of the local hopes in this race, is extremely quick, and I would think they're going to be very aggressive with him out of the gate. Hard to figure might be at his best when he's on or near the lead, plus he has to stretch out to 1 mile and an eighth. There are some questions that this horse has to answer, but his last race, that 100 buyer speed figure, he runs back to that, he'll be tough.
Yeah, he will. We'll see how fast this pace gets. Certainly the 5 is expected to go in this race. I know he's stretching out as well after winning, going 1 mile in his most recent start, but it just kind of feels like he's got to go to the lead in here. And listen, it's not like Fort Bragg is, some kind of blazer. He really, rather hard to figure some kind of blazer. He does have really good speed. I think he will be up close in this race. Other than that, I don't know. I didn't think there was a ton of pace in here.
The number 1 is, how did he do that? And this is a horse that would appreciate a fast pace up front. I thought he did his best in the Smarty Jones 2 starts back at Oaklawn. He was a big price. He wasn't expected to win, and he sort of ran evenly around the track. They added blinkers last time out for that Riley Allison Derby, and he came from off the pace with an okay finish to be second. He's 9-2 on the morning line for trainer Steve Asmussen. I would want more.
Yeah, I think if you like this horse, you probably could do a little. You'll probably do a little better than that 9-2 morning line. I can't see him taking that much money against this field, Dan. At the end of the day, he just hasn't run a fast race yet. They've stretched him out for his last 2 starts. He hasn't improved at all. He did get up for second last time. Never looked like he was going to win though, and it wasn't a fast race.
The number 2, Low Expectations, began his career on turf, but he's found a home on the main track. His 2 races on dirt have resulted in wins. They both have come around 2 turns, albeit against weaker competition in Southern California, including this $50,000 starter allowance last time out, a race in which he was able to get to the front, and he's very game. It's a much different situation here from a class and pace standpoint, and he won't have the benefit of Lasix.
Yeah, it feels like kind of when you ship a horse like this to run in the Sunland Derby, sometimes you won't catch a field that's as strong as this one. And maybe you can come in and just sort of find the right spot. I don't think that's the case this year, Dan. I will say this, though. I like both of his wins since they switched him over to dirt. I know the margins aren't big. I just like the way that he did it both times. It feels like he still has something in hand at the wire. This horse, to me, is okay. I just don't necessarily like him in this race.
4-1 on the morning line seems quite square on the number 3 Fort Bragg, considering the quality of competition he's faced in his 2 graded stake starts to date. In both of those appearances, he took on Practical Move, who's probably the best horse, a 3-year-old in Southern California right now, based on his victory in the San Felipe. Before those graded stakes efforts, Fort Bragg did nothing wrong. I'm not worried about distance, and he's getting some class relief.
Yeah, all those things I think are true, Dan. He's a horse who was super green as a younger horse, and it feels like maybe he's starting to get over those issues, which is a positive going forward. He was, no real factor off the little layoff there in the San Felipe last time, but he was wide around the track in that race. It wasn't a terrible performance. He fits right in here.
Number 4 is Henry Q. This horse received a pretty good rail skimming trip to win a restricted maiden race at Santa Anita 2 starts back. Had to answer the 2-turn question as the odds-on favorite, and he certainly did in the Mind That Bird Derby. This race just sort of coming out of nowhere. Henry Q controlling the pace and then drawing off to win as much the best. Maybe not the strongest field in the world, but he got a strong figure in 93.
Yeah, he just blows this field out through the stretch. He's the kind of horse that felt like even going into that Mind That Bird Derby that he was probably a little better than he looked on paper. I don't think you could have really expected him to run that kind of a race, though. It came back really fast. He dominated those horses. This is a tougher race day, but if he could repeat that last effort, he's not out of this.
Seems versatile enough from a running style standpoint as well. I think he can sit if others are intent on the lead. And one of those might be the number 5, One in Vermilion, who's done little wrong from 4 lifetime starts, including 3 victories, all in stakes races. Here's the Riley Allison Derby, an important race for One in Vermilion because he was stretching out around 2 turns for the first time. He was part of the pace. He's going to keep on going. And we'll see on the far outside, how did he do that? Get up for second.
Yeah, how did he do that? We'll make up a little late ground here, but he's never winning this race. Yeah, I think your point's well taken, though, about this horse at least proving that he could stretch out in distance and carry his speed a little bit. He's never really threatened in this race. Again, it didn't come back that fast. It was only a slight improvement for him on Beyer. He's got to take a huge step forward here.
Speaking of improvement on a Beyer standpoint, the 6 hard to figure. It was hard to figure he'd run a 100 Beyer speed figure in the Robert B. Lewis, but he did. It was an all Bob Baffert trained race, however, more of a training race, a 4-horse field. He's in between horses. He was prompting Arabian Lion, his regular workmate down on the inside, who's faltering. He makes the lead, and it takes a pretty decent horse, Newgate, the length of the stretch to run him down. This was by far a career best performance from hard to figure. He was a big price that day, fraction of those odds on Sunday. Do you have to see it again?
Yeah, 100%. Listen, he certainly improved last time. I'm having a tough time buying the triple-digit Beyer that race pulled in. We'll see if it turns out to be true. He's the first horse to run back out of there, and as well as he ran last time. I mean, at the end of the day, he had a pretty soft trip in there. That pace was not fast. He just sat up on the lead with a horse who was awful in the stretch of that race, and he couldn't hold on at the end. I don't know. Maybe he'll run that race back. I wouldn't bet on it.
Wild on Ice completes the field. This is a horse that's really going to have to improve because he was beaten a country mile in the Riley Allison Derby. He was beaten another country mile in the Mind That Bird Derby. His sprint races are very good. This is a 9-furlong race against some toughies.
Yeah, I don't. It's really hard to make a strong case for him here. I will say he had a pretty brutal trip in the Allison Derby 2 starts back. I was willing to give him a pass for that one. The trip was a little better last time. He was in an uncomfortable spot early, I thought, but he was no factor in that race, Dan. He's pretty hard to like.
Before we get to our top selections, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel for the latest DRF videos. Top pick time for our Sunday race of the day. Mike's going with the ex-Baffert trainee. Fort Bragg, of course, is now with Tim Yatin, and he just seems to fit from a running style standpoint, distance, and class. And I think if you get that 4-1, you're supposed to take it.
Yeah, I'm not expecting him to be 4-1 in here, Dan, but if he is, I'm betting him.
We'll see what we get from hard to figure. I can understand anyone's skepticism that the last race is just an anomaly. I think he's going to be aggressively ridden out of there. He should be in the thick of things when they turn for home. I got to use Fort Bragg as well. He looks very, very tough against this caliber of competition. 3-6-2-4 for Mike, 6-3-4-2 for me in the Sunland Park Derby. Sunday's DRF race of the day. Good luck.